As soon as the League One season ends, the transfer mill starts. Just 5 days after our final game of the League One season away at Lincoln City, we have been linked with 3 players already. We're only 5 or 6 days into the end of the season, and already Wrexham Football Club are getting linked with names left, right and centre. If you couldn't tell, it's going to be a long summer on the transfer rumour front. There'll be plenty of content coming on the channel. So before we get talking about the first batch of rumours that we have been given in this long pre-season, which it's going to be, make sure you get down there and click the red subscribe button. We're on the road to 27,000 subscribers. I cannot thank you enough for the support you've shown the channel over the past couple of weeks, especially in that run in towards promotion. I cannot thank you enough. So let's also see if we can hit 650 likes on today's video. And without further ado, let's talk about Wrexham transfer news. So according to well-renowned journalist on Twitter, Darren Whitcoop, Wrexham are set to target a striker with proven championship experience in the upcoming summer transfer window. 2 names have been thrown in the hat, Ryan Hardie and Callum Robinson, and both of those have been relegated to League One with their respective clubs. Of course, Callum Robinson playing for Cardiff City, he got relegated with them, and of course Ryan Hardie playing his football at Plymouth Argyle, he also got relegated. So we're going to be talking about these 2 strikers, starting off with Ryan Hardie, because people who have watching the channel for the past couple of months might remember me talking about Ryan Hardie in the January transfer window. He's a player that we have been linked with on several different occasions, and Parky seems to be an admirer of Ryan Hardie. So I think Parky definitely holds a long-lasting interest in Ryan Hardie, and whether he was waiting to see if Plymouth went down or not to increase the chance of getting Hardie, we really don't know. But now that they have gone down, I definitely do think there's a chance that if Parky does want that experienced striker, and if he does like Ryan Hardie this much, then there's no better time to go out and get him. Yeah, and despite getting relegated to League One, Ryan Hardie still had an incredible second half of the season and really was that spark in the Plymouth Argyle team that went down. In the second half of the season under Miron Muslik, he registered 10 goals in 15 games. So he really set the league alight, and you know that's probably one of the best goal to game ratios in the second half of the season that the Championship had. So he's going to be coming off that good form. Whether he'll be staying at Plymouth Argyle in the upcoming season, we really don't know. And if we're talking a bit on Ryan Hardie as a footballer, you know, he's been on the books at Plymouth Argyle down south for the past 6 seasons, where he has scored 74 goals in just over 200 games. He's gained a vast amount of experience, of course, in the EFL after making this switch to English football in 2019, where he signed for Blackpool. He then went on to sign for Plymouth Argyle, where he has been since 2019. So in terms of the squad that Hardie was playing with last season at Plymouth, and you know the circumstances that Plymouth Argyle were in, registering 10 goals whilst only having 25 shots on target in the whole campaign isn't a bad return at all. And I think, you know, he's got a really good eye for goal. His movement off the ball and, you know, from crosses and to create a chance, and his runs in the blind side of the defender have been key traits that have been picked up on by scouts, of course, that have been scouting on Ryan Hardie. So there seems to be a creative striker there, and whether he would suit being in a team where possibly the service is better, or possibly where, you know, the game plan and the style suits him. Of course, we saw the first half of the season under Rooney, he was barely getting a goal to his name, and then the second half of the season he registers 10 goals in 15 games. I think it's all down to the game plan and, you know, how the team sets up. Of course, under Musik, he was a really key player for them and provided many goals which helped them, you know, nearly survive on the final day. So I think it could be all down to Musik, of course, staying at Plymouth Argyle. If he does sign a new contract and stays on for the League One campaign, then Ryan Hardie's got to be looking at this thinking, he has got the best out of me. He's got 10 goals in a very poor Plymouth Argyle side over the course of the season. He's going to want to stay if he's going to guarantee, you know, continued success in that Plymouth Argyle team. Of course, he's under contract until the summer of 2026, so Wrexham would have to pay a fee for Ryan Hardie. But in their quest to go back up to the Championship, whether they're looking to recruit differently under a foreign manager, of course, we've seen on multiple occasions he brought in the January transfer window players from abroad. So whether if he does stay, that's the route he'll look down. And there's a chance Ryan Hardie could be out the door if the fee is right. But you've got to think as well, having been there for 6 seasons at home park, is there going to be some loyalty shown by Ryan Hardie? Would he jump ship at the easiest opportunity as soon as Plymouth go down? Is that the type of person he is? We really don't know. We'll have to wait and see in this transfer window. So talking now on the next striker that we have been linked with, Callum Robinson. Now, even non-Wrexham fans watching this, he is a player that is well known amongst all EFL fans for the various seasons he has spent in the Championship and in the Premier League for a few different sides. And like Ryan Hardie, despite getting relegated to League One from the Championship, he still ended up the season with double digits. He scored 12 goals in 35 games, which is a massive improvement on Callum Robinson's season last season in the Championship, where he only did score 2 goals. So something seemed to click this season. I don't know, again, like Hardie, it might be under a different manager, but you know, Callum Robinson, he's been in the EFL for years upon years now, and there's been seasons where he scored double digits, and then there's a season where he scored 2 or 3. There's not really much consistency to Callum Robinson's games as the seasons go by, but there's no doubt a really experienced striker there, and a striker that can score goals. And having looked at the verdict from a lot of Cardiff fans on Twitter, they all seem to be quite mixed, if I'm being honest. Some don't want him to go, but some are saying if the price is right, they would happily let him go to reinvest into the squad for possibly younger options, and options where, you know, you could sell Callum Robinson on probably for about 2 or 3 million. They could invest that in different routes and bring in sort of youth players in, and you could probably get 3 or 4 players with that now, especially as a League One club. But don't know, I just don't know on this one. Hardie, I'm sort of sold a bit, because we know, you know, the type of striker he is. We've seen him, you know, play that second half of the season for Plymouth Argyle. There seems to be a really hungry striker in there, but you look at Callum Robinson, you look at the Cardiff fans saying there's a bit of an attitude problem there, and especially with his injury history in recent times, it is a massive gamble to go in for him. And I wouldn't be against the signing, and it's going to sound really not big-headed, but saying I don't want to sign Callum Robinson. We've got to remember now as Wrexham fans, yes, we're so lucky to be in this position, but we're going to have a decent budget for this level. We're a Championship side now. If this was in League One and we were targeting Callum Robinson, I'd be thinking, do you know what, yeah, this is a good signing. Experience, lead the line, help us get up to the Championship. But if we're looking to be ambitious, and if we're looking to invest into this squad with the resources and the money that we do have, is Callum Robinson going to be that striker that's going to lead us to our ambitious plans of possibly, you know, getting the highest finish possible in the Championship table? I really don't know. And if Cardiff fans are saying he only, you know, picks when he wants to turn up, and he only looks half-arsed at times, and the injury history, it's all sort of coming into one, and thinking, is it worth going in for Callum Robinson? But you know, I think these are easy names to throw around at this stage in the transfer window. You know, Darren Whitcooper said Wrexham are targeting a player with Championship experience. You look at Ryan Hardie, you look at Callum Robinson, players that have spent 2 or 3 seasons in the Championship. They're easy names to throw around, and I don't think, if I'm being honest, there's going to be sort of much truth in this. Yes, Parky might have a whole host of different players he's looking at, and the agents of Ryan Hardie and Callum Robinson might have got in contact with Darren Whitcooper and said Wrexham have shown their interest. It doesn't mean that we're going to go gun-ho and sign them. I'm sure Wrexham and Phil Parkinson have got multiple players on the radar set to go out for in this Championship transfer window. So I would take this with a pinch of salt, and I take it as it comes at the minute, because nothing's guaranteed. Like I said, it's a week on since we finished the League One season. Nothing's nailed on, but they're names that have been thrown around, and I think there is a chance that these could be names that Parky might want to go in for after, you know, them getting relegated to League One football. Yeah, and on the whole, Callum Robinson, you know, I've just said about his injury history and sort of his attitude problems, but he's got promoted out this division before. He's experienced in this division, of course, and he's fresh off a good goal scoring season. So the pros and the cons sort of weigh each other out and sort of balance each other out. But I think there'll be fans watching this that will like the idea of the possible signing of Callum Robinson, and I think there's going to be people watching this that won't like it. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'm sure it'll cause mixed opinions, but for me, I think if we can get him for a decent price, whether he starts week in, week out or not, I think any striker coming into Wrexham Football Club is definitely going to have a good chance of starting, especially after the striker problems that we have had last season. So Callum Robinson, could he be a striker to come in, score the goals and steer Wrexham to survival next season in the Championship? We really don't know. Like I said, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And finally, talking on the last player to be linked with Wrexham Football Club, there have been whispers on social media and from some articles of Lynden Gooch possibly reuniting with Phil Parkinson and Steve Parkin after not being offered a contract at Championship side Stoke City. And in my opinion, before we get talking, I think there is a good chance of Gooch possibly making the switch to the racecourse ground. Now, talking now on Lynden Gooch. Gooch, of course, is a name that I've known for years upon years, you know, being the general EFL fan like Callum Robinson. You know, he's a player that has been well renowned in the EFL, and he really made his name at Sunderland, of course, throughout the Championship and in League One, where he made 247 appearances with 57 goal contributions at his stay at the Black Cats. And of course, he worked under Phil Parkinson from October 2019 to November 2020. Looking at statistics wise, and yes, football's not based on stats in terms of players, but he had his best time at Sunderland under Parky in terms of goal contributions. So could this be a signing where Lynden Gooch and his agent are looking at it thinking, we've worked under this coaching staff and this coaching team before, could they get the best out of me? Of course, I've just been released from Stoke City, so they're going to want that big step up. They're going to want that exciting chapter. And I think looking at what Phil Parkinson has said on Lynden Gooch in the past, he said about him so many times how professional he is, and just reading the articles saying how, you know, he's dealt with certain situations being benched or, you know, not being featured in the lineup and being happy with, you know, the impact that he has had off the bench and just overall as a player. So Parky seems to be a fan, and I'm sure Lynden Gooch, of course, seems to be a fan of Parky as well. And if we're looking at the type of player Gooch is now, he's very versatile, and to be honest, I seem to remember him as sort of a player that would play right back, left back, but in recent times he has been able to play on either flank, whether that's on the left wing or the right wing or at full back. He's very, very versatile, and I think that is going to be one thing that a lot of clubs are going to look at and think, we want to sign him, because who doesn't love a versatile player that can play, like I said, on the wings, at full back. We've even seen him on a couple of occasions playing centre midfield behind the striker, so he is very, very versatile. I think that's a big reason why already, since not being offered a contract, he is on the radar of so many teams, whether that be in the Championship, and if I'm being honest, I can see him being a great asset for any Championship side, of course, with the engine that he does have, the player that he is in the dressing room. I've seen a lot of people say he's a great character around the squad, and of course his versatility. And yes, you can have a player that's versatile, but Gooch is versatile and has a lot of quality in abundance, so I think this would be a good signing. Whether Wrexham Football Club need that player on that right hand side, of course we've got Barnett, we've got Longman, but on that left hand side, James McLean, Seb Evans. So could Parky be looking at it in terms of signing him as a fullback or possibly as a central midfielder? You could probably play Gooch anywhere across those positions I've just said, and he'd put in a good job. So this is definitely one to keep an eye on. I think, you know, the likelihood of this happening, I don't know. Could Parky have an impact on whether Gooch goes to Wrexham or goes elsewhere? I think Parky could have a big impact on that, but there's going to be a lot of established Championship sides after Lynden Gooch, and whether coming to Wrexham, you know, freshly promoted for the first time in 40 years, he sees that as a risk. We don't know whether he wants that challenge upper end of the table. We really don't know, but time will tell, and I think I'd be very happy if we saw Lynden Gooch come to Wrexham. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Out of the players I've just named, would you like to see us sign Ryan Hardie, Callum Robinson or Lynden Gooch? Of course, they're all established Championship players, and it's going to be an interesting time. Going into this transfer window, there is going to be so many names, and if there's anyone watching this, can you please sort of make a note about how many players I talk about so far this season? That's 3 players. In my opinion, it'll probably go 20 plus, but I love talking about these players. I love doing the research. I love just producing the content on them. Yes, 9 times out of 10, the signings don't come off. There's probably truth in there, but there's a lot of names linked with Wrexham Football Club. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on the signings. Make sure to subscribe, drop a like, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you in another video. Take care, guys. Up the promotion winning Reds, and of course, up the Championship Reds.